Inihahandog ng UP-CMC Departamento ng Broadcast at ng Universidad ng Pilipinas Diliman. Kasama ang Philippine Studies Association at DZUP. Ang pagdiriwang ng ika-100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.
Isang mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat. Welcome to BCQ, Broadcast in Quarantine. Hatid sa inyo ng UP Departamento ng Broadcasting at ng DZUP. Pag-uusapan natin sa programang ito ang mga isyung kinahaharap ng media sa panahon ng pandemya at kung paano nakaapekto sa lipunan at sa pang-araw-araw na buhay nating mga Filipino. Ang BCQ ang naging tugon ng UP Departamento ng Broadcasting upang idokumento at mapag-usapan ang mga pagbabagong ito sa Philippine media landscape. Nabuo ito noong 2020 sa panahon ng lockdown dahil sa COVID-19 pandemic. Nagpatuloy ang pag-produce ng BCQ episodes sa kursong Broadcast Journalism 130, Issues in News and Public Affairs Programs in the Philippines. Dahil sa specialized na subject matter ng kurso, naging tampok ang karanasan ng mga media practitioner, eksperto at mananaliksik ng mga News and Public Affairs Program sa mga panayam sa student edition ng BCQ. Ngayon ay kasama na rin ang BCQ sa internship program ng DZUP 1602. Sama-sama nating tunghayan ang mga kwento at karanasan ng media sa Pilipinas sa panahon ng pandemya. Ako si Ivy Claudio at ito ang Broadcast in Quarantine. May 5, 2020, kasunod ng utos ng National Telecommunications Commission, bunsod ng pag-expire ng legislative franchise ng ABS-CBN, ay nawala sa himpapawid ang istasyon ng TV at radyo ng network. Kabilang dito ang 5 AM stations, 18 FM stations, at 42 TV stations. Noong July 10, 2020, tuluyan ng hindi ipinasa ng Kongreso ang franchise renewal ng ABS-CBN, isa sa pinakamalaking broadcast network sa bansa. At noong August 28, 2020, nagsara naman ang 12 regional TV patrol programs. Kasabay nito ang pagkawala ng trabaho ng libong bilang ng manggagawa ng ABS-CBN. Nangyari ang lahat ng ito sa gitna ng pandemya, sa panahon ng Administrasyong Duterte. Samahan natin sina Krisha Ann Marcelo at Roy Adams Magat sa episode na ito ng Broadcast in Quarantine.
Pagdiriwang ng 100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.
Sa kasalukuyan, hindi pa rin nare-renew ang prangkisa ng ABS-CBN, ngunit patuloy na umaarangkada ang mga programa at content ng istasyon sa iba't ibang digital platforms, sa cable TV, at ibang istasyon kung saan may partnership ang network. Paano kaya magtrabaho sa panahong ito sa ABS-CBN? Alamin natin ang naging karanasan ni RG Cruz bilang isang Multiplatform Political Correspondent ng ABS-CBN Integrated News sa panayam ng BCQ noong June 11, 2021.
Thank you so much, Sir RG, sa pagpapa-unlock po sa invitation namin. Simula pong tanong, paano po nakaapekto ang pandemya sa trabaho ng mga journalists?
Nawala yung, like with everybody else, we were all confined to our houses. Nawala yung physical, yung human element, yung face-to-face element. that is very useful when you are covering, when you're out there doing the beats, when you're out there meeting sources, doing interviews, face to face, talking to your sources, talking to people, newsmakers who will give you information. That's very different from getting information from behind a computer screen, which is like what we're doing now. Alam nyo kasi pagka merong personal element, nakikita nyo yung visual cues or yung physical cues. Kapag ka ang isang tao ay kinakausap niyo, you will be able to see kung siya ay nagsisinungaling or nagsasabi ng totoo. And of course, kapag ka naman halimbawa, hindi nga kayo nagkikita, so it will be difficult to give information or get information, especially if you are after certain documents na yung source mo may not be ready na magkaroon ng electronic paper trail. So, dati kasi pre-pandemic, kapag meron kaming kailangan dokumento or news material, especially if it's confidential or unattributable, pwede naming magkita, we'll just see each other in a very discreet place, and then it will be handed over to us quite discreetly. No paper trail, face to face. But of course, you can do that. You can't just be giving out documents on email or on social media without leaving an electronic paper trail. So, yun yung ilan sa mga changes because of the pandemic. At saka isa pa pala, when it comes to doing interviews, since we are now restricted to video conferencing and text messages and emails, medyo may element ng we're at the mercy of the people we're interviewing, in the sense that they can refuse to join us on Zoom or answer our text messages or answer email. They can cherry pick which questions they wanna discuss or answer. They can even shorten the Zoom meetings if you choose to attend Zoom meetings.
Sir, naka-experience po ba kayo na in-person yung event tapos unnecessary na nagpapatawag sila ng reporter ngayong panahon ng pandemya?
Not in my experience, to be honest. The people I've covered, the events that I've covered, necessarily they've resorted to online coverages. Like in my case, I cover politics, I cover the House of Representatives. The politicians naman prefer to talk online. They prefer to talk through the virtual hearings, virtual press conferences, virtual interviews. Most of that is done through Zoom. Yung iba naman kung hindi done through Zoom, it's done through live stream on social media, in which case, hindi kami pwede masyado makapagtanong kasi nga, alam mo naman sa Facebook, alam mo naman sa mga live streams, it's one way. They just broadcast to us, but we can't really send back feedback directly as you would when you are doing an interview on Zoom.
Sir, let's juxtapose naman po yung pandemya tapos wala pang prangkisa. Ano po yung limits na naranasan ng ABS-CBN Integrated News?
Okay, in terms of coverage, syempre, nawala ng prangkisa, nabawasan yung resources namin because the franchise allows us to broadcast on free TV. Free TV is our bread and butter. And I don't want to go into the specifics of how it impacted us financially, but since nabawasan kami ng bread and butter, nabawasan din kami ng pera na pwede namin itap for expensive coverages. Mas pinipili namin ng coverages namin yan kasi nga hindi na po pwedeng we have to make sure that every coverage we get generates, or every coverage we do generates enough stories to justify our salaries, to justify the incidental expenses that we spend for coverage. So that's one. The other thing is in terms of reach, because nawalan nga kami ng free TV, we don't have access to all household TV screens all over the nation the way we used to when we still had a franchise. So mas konti ang nakakapanood sa amin kasi now our reach is just online, on social, on cable. This is the era of what happened back in 1986 when we just got back in the air. After we just got back on air after martial law. So medyo in a sense medyo may element ng pagsisimula ulit. But that being said, yun na nga, na-limit yung reach namin, na-limit yung resources namin. Our wings, for all intents and purposes, were clipped because of the shutdown and as if it wasn't already clipped enough by the limitations of the pandemic.
Nakatulong po ba yung pagiging exposed ninyo to different platforms na mabilis po na maka-adapt yung network?
We're all multi-platform reporters. Even before the shutdown happened, talagang part na ng business model, part na ng job descriptions namin, part na ng trust ng ABS-CBN to embrace social media. The franchise was not even an issue yet when we started pivoting to social media as early as 10 years ago when social media began, and we knew it was the next big thing. So doon nagsimula yung aming pivot to becoming multi-platform journalists. So when I say multi-platform journalist, you're not just reporting and covering on free TV. You're servicing cable, you're servicing radio, you're servicing websites, you're servicing social media. So kaya siya tinasabing multi-platform because those are different platforms. Of course, when the shutdown happened, we lost one platform, which is free TV. So in that sense, yung previous pivot na namin to multi-platform journalism helped us transition into this new, hopefully temporary normal na wala kami sa free TV, because in that multi-platform setup, free TV is just one of our job descriptions, and we've been at this for quite a while. The transition began, I think, 2009, 2008, and then it's been a work in progress. Shortly before the shutdown, I think we've gotten really very good at it. That's why the pivot to digital didn't really take much of an effort. It didn't really shock the system when the franchise expired and was not renewed last year.
Sir, in-expect po ba ng ABS-CBN na ganito na talaga yung mangyayari sa kanila?
If you're talking about the franchise, of course, we were hoping for the best. As you know, I'm also very, very much involved in the franchise coverage because it happened in the House of Representatives, which is my place of assignment, my beat of assignment. So, I'm pretty familiar with how everything panned out intimately. And of course, I can tell you that we really hope for the best. But yes, we were expecting this because, ang franchise kasi, ultimately it's a decision, like any law, ultimately it's a decision of the President of the Philippines. And as early as when he assumed office, the President was already saying that he's not gonna give us a franchise. So that was 2016. We were shut down last year because we had 4 years to hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Sir, you've covered the palace po in former President Arroyo's term, and you continue to be a political correspondent to this day. Can you compare po kung ano na yung kalagayan ng journalist nung nakaraang administrasyon sa Duterte administration?
Oh, certainly we had a franchise then. When you're covering politics, it's par for the course na magkaroon ng confrontational relationship between journalists and the politicians, the public officials, because it's necessary. It's necessarily because you are speaking truth to power, and when you confront them with hard facts, those facts won't always be convenient to them. So talagang may element of, at the very least, debate, if not outright away. In that sense, walang masyadong pinagkaiba. But of course, now, we were not renewed. There were people who there are politicians who have been saying that, and I think it's Secretary Locsin who's been saying this on Twitter, that had we gotten our franchise renewed during GMA's time or even during President Aquino's time, we would have definitely gotten a renewal. So of course, but that's hindsight, that's speculation. We don't really know that for sure. But the fact remains that in this administration, there's a major network that did not get a franchise renewal amid a lot of approved franchises coming out of Congress. So that will always be a blotch in terms of the differences between then and now. And of course, there's the pandemic, there's the pivot to social media. Nung time ni President Arroyo, this was early 2000s or early aughts, but I don't know how you call it these days. Social media was just beginning. Facebook was new, Twitter was new. I don't think, or Instagram was just beginning too. But now you have all of these platforms. We already have TikTok these days, although I only lurk there. You have all of these platforms now where you can spread news, share news, not just news, but do explainers. You're not really delivering news, but you're explaining concepts that are prevalent in news. All of these platforms that exist now didn't exist back then. And of course, noong panahon na yun, wala pang fake news. Kasi nga social media was new. When people had mastered social media, then they were also able to figure out how to abuse it. And that's where fake news came in.
Sir, that leads us to our next question po. Do you believe na may distrust po sa media sa kasalukuyang panahon?
Yes. And I think a large part of that is self-inflicted. Kasi may mga pagkakamali din naman ng mainstream media na hindi inaamin. Like, we are not really upfront about holding our own accountable when people have made mistakes. And I'm talking generally, not just in terms of ABS-CBN, but I know some journalists are averse to admitting errors because feeling nila it erodes their credibility when they admit an error. But actually, pagka kasi, ako ang policy ko kasi, pagka kasi may error ka, aminin mo na, mag-sorry ka na lang. That's a very big credibility boosting measure. Rather than, nagkamali ka, huli ka na nga, tapos patay mali siya ka pa, and then you sweep it under the rug.
Sir, pag i-relate po natin siya sa kawalan po ng franchise ng ABS-CBN, tingin niyo po ba nagkaroon ito ng chilling effect sa iba pang media organizations?
Mabalik ko sa inyo yung tanong, do you think media is as critical as it was before we were shut down now? Do you see more expository stories about the people in power now compared to before the shutdown? I mean, if I answer that question kasi, syempre, I will say na may chilling effect yan. At saka, although, may discomfort ako doon kasi may pagka self-serving din yung ganung comment. That's why ibabalik ko sa inyo yung tanong. Do you think media is more critical now? Or was it more critical before? Kasi kung more critical siya before, then definitely may chilling effect.
We'll be thinking about that. Kasi po, recurring po yung conversation na to sa classes namin. Kasi lagi naming sinasabi na sa new media na kami nagko-consume.
That's why we pivoted to social media. Part of the reasons actually. But also because, and I guess you can debate with this amongst yourselves and even among your professors. One can argue that traditional broadcasting is going to be dying because of the transitions in technology. Our field is technology driven, and the technologies in broadcast are changing. So eventually, magkakaroon sa nakikita natin ngayon, magkakaroon ng marriage kasi between free TV as a medium and social because of how internet is getting more democratized. So at some point, the internet's reach will match and then eventually surpass traditional media. Pag umabot dun sa ganun, talagang wala ng distinction.
What do you think are possible endeavors that journalists will encounter in the era of new media?
That's a very tough question. It's hard to predict kasi it's hard to predict how the technology is gonna further evolve. I guess we just have to stick to our values so that we can continue our mission. Remember that broadcast, whether it's traditional broadcast or internet-based broadcast that's done through mobile internet, it relies on frequencies which are owned by the state. That's why it's always imbued with public interest, because ultimately it's the public, not the government, but the public, the state, and in a democratic society, the state is all of us because we don't have a monarch. We own it, so it should serve our interests.
For our last question po, any advice for us aspiring journalists?
In journalism, sabi nga ng boss ko, merong konting vow of poverty yan. ABS-CBN pays well. I can certainly say that of ABS-CBN. That's why I've stayed here all these years. But it won't make you the big bucks that you're probably thinking of. And aside from not making you the big bucks, it won't make us popular. There's a lot of problems. Yun na nga, necessarily when you are speaking truth to power, marami kang makakaaway. Marami kang makakaway na politiko, marami kang makakaway na interest groups. Some days it will feel like a thankless job. So, yun, if you want to be famous, if you want to be rich, then do yourself a favor. Do not come to news. Go to entertainment. Always remember that if you are coming to news, you have to have this genuine sense of public service, genuine sense of community, and genuine sense of wanting to give back to the community that brought you here. We have to serve the Filipino taxpayers, and that is my advice to all of you. Remember why you are here. Remember that you are here because you have to serve the public interest. You have to serve a higher purpose beyond your own individual purposes.
Maraming salamat po, Sir RG, sa makabuluhang talakayan natin ngayong araw.
Pagdiriwang ng 100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.
Sa kabilang banda, dapat din nating tingnan ang umiigting na kompetisyon sa viewership ng mga broadcast programs, sa content naman ng mga streaming services at iba pang digital platforms. Paano hinarap ng mga producers ang limitasyon sa mobility dahil sa lockdowns, health restrictions at alert levels na pinalabas ng IATF? Sa panayam ng BCQ noong December 20, 2021, alamin natin ang naging karanasan ng isang TV segment producer mula sa GMA7, si Marc Teomar Bautista.
Huwag na natin patagalin pa dahil ako ay laking Kuya Kim. Marami rin akong gustong malaman ngayon. Kaya please, help me welcome Mr. Marc Teomar Bautista. Hello!
Hello everyone! Hello! Hello!
Happy New Year to you. And sige, huwag natin patagalin pa ito. Simulan natin. Pwede mo ba kaming bigyan ng idea, ang ating mga listeners and viewers, pati na rin ako, tungkol sa iyong journey at experience bilang TV segment producer, kung paano ka nagsimula at paano ka humantong sa ganyang career?
Mag-travel muna sa nangyari sa akin bago ako naging segment producer. So, nung college pa lang, nag-aaral pa lang ako actually, nag-apply ako as field reporter. Tinry ko lang yung luck ko kung makukuha ako. So, tinry ko sa amin sa Baguio. That time, meron pang ABS-CBN, Northern Luzon, yung mga regional stations ng ABS. So, doon talaga ako nagsimula. OJT rin kasi ako before doon, kaya kilala na nila ako. Then, tinry kong mag-VTR and fortunately, ayun, nakuha ako, nakapasok ako as field reporter. Pero nagtagal lang siya ng 1 taon. And alam niyo naman yung naging kapalaran ng ABS, kaya nagkaroon ng retrenchment sa mga employee. Kaya isa ako sa mga na-retrench. And then, tinry ko na mag-apply sa KMJS. Ang amazing nung nangyari, kasi nung time na sinabi sa akin na matatanggal ako sa ABS-CBN, nung inabot yung brown envelope, ang tawag na namin mahiwagang brown envelope, na yun, nagsasabi na, na kailangan nilang magbawas ng empleyado. Imbis ako sa matatanggal, napanood ko sa TV commercial ng GMA na hiring ang KMJS ng mga researchers. So, ayun, tinry ko yung luck ulit doon, and then, fortunately, after 2 days lang ata or 3 days, pagka-submit ko ng resume, tinawagan ako na for interview, and ayun, nakapasok naman din ako, nakapasa sa mga examination. And ayun, nung after a year na naging researcher, na-promote na rin ako as TV segment producer. Kumbaga, ang pagiging researcher kasi yung parang entrance or, yung parang entry position sa job sa public affairs. So, yun yung una kong job. Naging researcher ako for a year, and then ngayon, magti-3 years na akong TV producer.
That's nice to know. Para pala siyang ladder. Parang you have to start somewhere before you even get to where you are. And especially lalo nag-start ka bilang as student pa, as like us, like undergraduate, nag-start ka na agad bilang your OJT. And your journey nga towards becoming a TV segment producer right now. So ngayon kasalukuyang TV segment producer ka na sa isang malaking istasyon, like what you mentioned. Ano nga ba naging dulot ng pandemya sa production ng News and Public Affairs program? Like in general, paano nagbago ang production ng News and Public Affairs sa ating bansa ngayon?
Malaki pinagbago. Nung onset ng pandemic, di ba nag-replay ang mga TV stations muna? Kasi lahat tayo nangangapapa kung ano yung gagawin. Ang nag-i-air lang talaga ng fresh stories and news. Siyempre kailangan na updated lagi ang news everyday yan. So sila lang yung mga fresh stories ang ini-air. So kami sa public affairs, naging struggle sa amin yung pagbuo ng kwento. Kasi meron tayong process sa pagbuo, meron tayong pre-prod, production, post-production. Pero ang nangyari kasi sa amin, hindi namin ma-execute yung production, lalo na sa mga limitation ng nagkaroon tayo ng pandemic. Bawal tayo makipag face-to-face interaction ng basta-basta ng walang face mask, face shield. Unlike before na kung bubuin namin yung story, pwede mo nang puntahan agad. Ura-urada, instant, pupuntahan mo na para ma-interview yung tao. Eh, nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, ang daming naging limitations sa aming mga producer. So, yun yung ang pinaka-struggle talaga sa namin noon is yung pagbuo ng kwento. Paano namin ma-map or ma-execute ng maayos and effective pa rin yung storytelling katulad ng mga ginawa ng pre-pandemic. So, ang nangyari, nag-brainstorming muna kami nung una habang nag-replay. And naging struggle din siya sa amin financially kasi nung nag-replay kami, sad to say na hindi lahat sa amin nakakatanggap ng income. Walang sahod yung iba, nag-stop, nag-freeze. Nagkaroon lang naman ng cash advance pero iba pa rin yung pre-pandemic, natatanggap mo yung actual na sahod mo na malaking tulong din. Ayun, ang struggle sa pagbuo noon is paano mo ma-execute nga yung story na gusto ipalabas ng quality pa rin yung mga video na ipapakita. So yun talaga yung pinaka naging worry namin. And siguro maswerte na lang din kami na nalagpasan kasi hindi naman namin pinaghandaan eh. Walang ready sa pandemic, walang ready kung anong gagawin. Lalo na sa industry natin sa media. Yung news kasi is mabubuo nila yung stories ng point and shoot. Eh kami sa public affairs, ang dami pang kailangan i-consider na paano yung sa interview, may kailangan kang emotion na i-elicit or ilabas doon sa interview mo, yung shots, yung angles, paano may execute ng maayos yun kung yung producer mismo wala sa field na mag-work remotely. Yun talaga yung mga naging challenge na kinaharap namin.
I also heard nga din sa ibang producers na parang what they have in mind is to produce content na people will recognize na parang they're still watching a content without the pandemic. Like parang they can still produce a content na parang the people, the audience won't imagine that there's a pandemic kasi they also use TV programs as a gateway to be able to be entertained, ganun, para makalimutan nila yung mga problems nila sa buhay. And speaking of creating content, paano nga ba binago ng pandemya yung production process? Particularly yung distribution ng TV segments, lalo na maraming Pilipino ang nahihikayat na mas manood sa online ngayon, sa mga online platforms, mga streaming services. Paano kayo nakapag-compete sa ganong level?
Kung babalik natin yung nangyari sa amin noon, na nung nagsimula yung pandemic, lahat ng yung airtime namin is more than an hour. Pero since nga limited yung mga budget, yung parang ang form lang namin na fresh stories ay 2 o 3. Usually kasi ang format ng KMJS, 6 or 7 stories yan na fresh. Lahat is bago. Pero nung pandemic, ang na-form lang namin is 2 o 3 dahil nga, ayun, maraming mga limitations. Then yung the rest is na lang siya, replay. Yung pinaka naging challenge din na, yun nga, na parang maraming nag-divert sa online. So kami, as program sa TV, naging active din kami online para mas malalang ma-engage yung mga mga audience. Kung mapapansin ninyo, nagkaroon kami ng pagbibigay ng prize. Pag nanonood yung tao sa TV, and then magko-comment sila online, may possibility manalo sila ng prize. Yun yung naging technique namin or strategy para hindi bumitaw yung audience namin doon sa program. Namimigay kami ng parang 5,000 na ayuda, parang yun yung term doon sa prize. Pag nahulaan kung ano yung next na mangyayari dun sa story, kung tama yung nakuha mong sagot, kung tinapos nyo ba hanggang dulo, nanood ba kayo, may selfie ba kayong nanood hanggang last segment. Ganun yung mga naging pakulo namin para hindi kami papaghulihan ng mga online platforms na nag-exist na ngayon.
And I have to say, very effective siya. Kasi my parents, they're all watching KMJS like every Saturday and so every weekends. And lagi nila nakita yung ad na parang they have to take a picture at the end of the show. And also nakita ko rin sa ng gabi ng lagim, there was a countdown of the episode and I was really, really intrigued kung ano nga bang meron sa episode na yun. And I super duper like the the way that you executed those kinds of things to make the people and to make the episode more engaging?
Parang nag-go beyond na kami sa work namin. Kasi as TV producers, hindi naman namin work na mag-isip ng marketing strategy, parang ganun. Or strategy to make our audience stay doon sa sa pinroduce namin na story. Pero kailangan namin gawan ng paraan para hindi kami mapaghulihan ng mga ibang natin, existing na online platforms.
Mm-mm. So really hit two birds at one stone, becoming the TV segment producers and also marketing managers then of the show. And para sa'yo, bilang sa mga nabanggit mo kanina, ano ang mga issue or challenges na encounter mo bilang TV segment producer? Pwede sa isa or sa parehong programa? At paano mo sila napagtagumpayan?
Andun yung frustration as producer na yung gusto mong angle ng shoot or kaya yung gusto mong mangyari sa shoot, hindi mo siya control. Hindi mo siya makontrol kasi nag-work ka lang remotely. Wala ka physically doon sa place. Yun yung isa sa mga ang hirap i-overcome na na feeling noong time na nagkaroon ng pandemic. Lalo pag sa interview, kasi pag face-to-face, iba yung feeling pagkausap mo yung tao. Kaya mo siyang paiyakin, kaya mo siyang patawanin nang hindi naglalag yung camera, hindi nagkakaroon ng problem sa signal. Yun yung naging struggle talaga namin, especially dun nga para maging effective yung storytelling. Doon kami nahirapan kasi kailangan talaga naming iraos yung story. Kailangan namin siyang magawa kahit mahirap. So yun yung pinaka naging struggle namin as producers na hindi namin maayos yung ibang yung quality ng shoots or yung interview soundbites kasi wala kami doon physically. May mga times din na may mga places na may mga places kami mga ini-interviewhan na wala silang signal at all. Yun yung pinaka-struggle. So ang umaasa kami doon sa point person namin doon na ibibigay namin sa kanya lahat ng guide questions. Ito yung mga kailangan namin masagot niya. And kailangan niya itong masagot. Parang dapat masagot niya to. So aasa na lang kami sa recorded na nila. Especially if hindi mo rin alam yung language pala. Yun yung isa sa mga struggle.
Mm-mm.
Hindi mo alam yung language since nationwide yung indicator ng program. Ayun. So yun yung mga naging struggle ngayong pandemic na may mga bagay na hindi namin makontrol kahit gusto man namin ma-improve yung quality or output namin, yung quality ng output.
And you're all taken aback kasi no one really expected this thing would ever even happen. And kung kailan ba ito matatapos lahat? And kung kailan ba tayo mag-uusap na lang hanggang sa Zoom? And as of now, 2022, and a lot of people are becoming more optimistic na baka this year mas okay na and mas bumalik na ulit sa dati. Pero since nga, as of now, 2022, January 3, opisyal na nagsimula ang Alert Level 3 sa Metro Manila. Ngunit sa mga nakaraang buwan, nagbukas na muli ang mga sinehan sa 50% capacity, ngayon 30% na. Gayon din sa film and TV productions. Marami na tao na bukunahan at bumabalik na muli sa dating nakagawian. Ngunit, subalit, sa panibagong pagbabanta ng Omicron variant, because of these improvements from 2020 to 2021, and now right off the bat, another ordeal in 2022. How do you see news and public affairs programming now and after the pandemic? And how do you make sense of these changes, if ever?
Now, syempre, kailangan pa rin namin mag-observe or mag-follow ng mga safety protocols. Sa ngayon kasi unti-unti na rin kami bumabalik sa field, yung mga TV producers. Pero habang nangyayari yun, ino-observe pa rin namin yung mga safety protocols. And we allot budget talaga for antigen test, for swab test, because we want to make sure na safe ang lahat during the shoot. So pag may shoot kami na may involving ang mga senior citizen, mga bata, kami mga producers, we undergo swab test or antigen test na yun, nagkakaroon din ng dagdag sa budget na cost sa budget ng program. And ngayong medyo lumalala na naman yung case, baka bumalik na naman tayo sa pag-face shield. Hopefully, hindi sana. Ayan. In-expect din namin na mas giging strict yung mga provinces, especially sa mga galing sa NCR. Kaya ngayon, nire-ready ulit namin yung sarili namin na baka ang mangyari, bumalik lang ulit sa pag-remote produce. Pero since na-experience namin siya before, alam namin kung paano magiging mas quality na yung output as compared nung naunang nung pandemic. And nire-ready na lang namin yung sarili namin sa worst case scenario. Kasi ganun naman tayo sa media. Kailangan natin magkaroon lagi ng backup plan. Hindi pwedeng wala na. Hindi pwedeng may end na yung mga bagay-bagay as much as possible kung may solution A, merong B to Z yan, ganyan.
Since it's New Year, you have to expect the unexpected kasi no one really knows until when the pandemic will even end or will it even end? Ganun siya. And hopefully, okay naman yung work mo all throughout the year. And I hope you are doing the best that you can to give us the quality content that our viewers and audience need. And bago pa man tayo magpaalam, Sir Marc Teomar, ano ang magiging payo mo sa mga susunod na media practitioners, lalong-lalo na mga broadcasting students na aberya ng pandemic, katulad namin, kasalukuyang 1.5 year na kami sa pag-online class. And dahil nga sa alert level 3, naitigil na naman ang posibilidad na magkaroon ng face-to-face classes dahil sa bagong variant na yan. Meron ka bang glimmer of hope sa aming gustong sumabog sa industry?
For me, it's the best time na maging part ng industry, ng media industry. Kasi yung challenge na kinakaharap namin ngayon, wala siyang format kung paano masasolve. So, dito talaga mapapractice kung ano yung natutunan nyo sa school na paano tayo mag-troubleshoot ng mga problema. So, ngayong pandemic, very challenging siya, pero at the same time, fulfilling kung makita mo yung output mo na air on TV, mapopost online. And, ayun. So, kapag gusto mo talaga yung job, may enjoy mo naman siya. And yung mga struggles sa pagbuo, after, pag nabuo nyo na yung story, magiging fulfilling na talaga yung mararamdaman mo. Kaya, huwag kayong mapanghinaan ng loob na parang wala ng job, especially may nag-shutdown na malaki ng network, na may ang daming against sa media industry sa natin, sa job natin. But it's the best time na mag-stand up and ipakita natin na relevant tayo sa time na to. At saka iba yung feeling na you witness history firsthand. Iba talaga yung feeling na ikaw yung magkikwento ng information na makukuha mo na fresh and
Okay, so you heard it from the man himself na tayo mga broadcasting students, wag tayo susuko. Pagpatuloy lang natin ang fire na in-ignite natin from the very beginning kasi walang makapag-repress sa ating kalayaan magsabi and magbalita. And bago po tayo magpatapos, Mr. Sir Marc Teomar, meron ka bang gustong sabihin o i-plug o final words para sa ating mga tagapanood at tagapakinig?
Sa mga nanonood at sa mga makikinig, supportahan natin yung mga output ng mga local na mga producers sa Pilipinas, sa mga films, sa movies, sa mga TV programs like yung programa namin sa KMJS and sa news platform, flagship news namin na program which is 24 Oras. And supportahan natin yung mga storytellers ng bansa natin para patuloy pa kami makapagbuo ng mga makabuluhang mga kwento na makatutulong din sa mga kapwa natin mga Pilipino.
Thank you so much, sir. Muli, maraming salamat, Mr. Marc Teomar Bautista, para sa makabuluhang talakayan ngayong araw. Marami kaming natutunan mula sa iyo at salamat sa pagiging inspirasyon sa amin sa mga susunod na media practitioners. Truly, it's an honor to have you with us today and wishing you all the best sa career mo this 2022 and for the following years. Stay safe always.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you din sa lahat.
At maraming salamat din sa iyo na lahat na nakikinig sa episode na ito ng BCQ Broadcast in Quarantine. Sana'y makasama namin kayo sa susunod pang mga talakayan sa mga issue ng media sa gitna ng pandemya dahil hindi naka-quarantine ang malayang talakayan.
Pagdiriwang ng 100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.
Paano nagbago ang media sa panahon ng pandemya? Dito sa BCQ, patuloy naming aalamin, susuriin at iintindihin kung paano nga ba nagbago ang media sa panahon ng pandemya. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat na nakibahagi sa episode na ito ng BCQ Broadcast in Quarantine. Sana'y makasama namin kayo sa susunod pang talakayan tungkol sa mga issue ng media sa gitna ng pandemya dahil hindi na ika-quarantine ang malayang talakayan. Ako si Ivy Claudio, maraming salamat at isang mapagpalayang araw sa ating lahat.
Ang programang ito ay hatid sa inyo ng UP-CMC Departamento ng Broadcast at Universidad ng Pilipinas, Diliman, kasama ang Philippine Studies Association at DZUP, sa pagdiriwang ng ika-100 taon ng broadcasting sa Pilipinas.